I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Snazzy, you okay in here?
Present and accounted for.
What about Dynamite and Lex? Are they safe?
They're both aboard the airship, so they're safe from that thing.
Okay, good. Well, folks, we seem to have gotten ourselves into a bit of a pickle. It turns out one of the decorative rocks out in the garden was a stone egg, it hatched, and now there's an invisible dinosaur chasing after us. I managed to lock it outside for now, but it's only a matter of time before it finds its way in, I'm sure of that. Feels like the plot to a bad movie.
You mean The Sound of Horror? I'd say it's exactly like that.
Now that you mention it, it does. Well, the show must go on, so how about I review the movie while you figure out a way to dispose of that thing?
Why is that my job?
Because I spent about 30 minutes letting that thing chase me all over the neighborhood so Dynamite and Lex could get away. I need a break, so you come up with a plan and I'll do the movie. I think that's only fair.
Well, when you put it that way, fine. I expect plenty of gratitude for it, though.
Get us out of here alive and you'll have it. Anyway, here's the lowdown on The Sound of Horror.
It's the early 60s, and a small group of independent treasure hunters are excavating a cave in Greece. Their goal is to find a treasure that was abandoned before World War II and believed lost. Unfortunately, their trip never does turn up gold. Instead, it turns up a prehistoric egg from which hatches a saurian monstrosity with camouflage so good that it appears invisible to the naked eye. It's a struggle to survive as our tomb-raiding protagonists find themselves taking shelter in a nearby grotto, cornered by an opponent they cannot see, but they can hear the blood-curdling sound it makes.
Man, talk about low budget. I've said in the past that it's very easy to do invisible monster movies, and nowhere is that more apparent than in Sound of Horror.
This movie is the most extreme example of less is more that I have yet to come across, seeing as how it came up with an excuse to not even show the monster 99% of the time. It doesn't even bother with elaborate special effects shots like the classic Invisible Man movies do. The closest we get is a brief spot towards the end where the monster gets hit by axes, and that's clearly just static images of said axes superimposed over the shot. They didn't even cut off the edges to make it look like they were embedded in its skin or something.
Clearly the movie was made on the cheap, but that's not to say it's without merit.
After all, it has historical significance as the cinematic debut of horror icon Ingrid Pitt, and even if it was done out of necessity, the idea of being stalked by an invisible dinosaur is certainly an interesting one.
That certainly makes it unique among dinosaur movies, but does it result in something watchable? You may be surprised to learn that the answer is yes, but just barely. Look, it's obvious that Sound of Horror was made on the cheap, but you know the old saying, it's not the size of your budget that counts, but how you use it.
Are you sure that saying is about budgets?
Yes, and we're going to leave it at that and move on. So we have an invisible monster, we've established that. But is it effectively portrayed? I would say yes, even with the occasional special effects faux pas.
Remember that the movie is called Sound of Horror, or in the original Spanish, El Sonido de la Muerte. The Alpha Video DVD erroneously says the original title is El Sonido Prehistorico, but even this mistake reinforces where the focus lies.
All 3 titles emphasize the eerie, wild noises this thing makes as it approaches and attacks.
The sounds are mixes of various animal vocalizations, some of which sound feline to my ears, but when put together they make for an immediately recognizable sound cue. Even though it's the same loop over and over, the sounds do a good job of representing the monster.
In a weird way, it's similar to how music would be used to represent the shark in Jaws a decade later. It's not quite as effective, mind you, but it is similar.
The performances also help to convey the terror of this predicament. True, nobody was going to win any awards for this movie, but for the material they had and the task they were assigned, they do a decent job.
Something is probably lost in the English dubbing, as usually happens, but I can't completely knock the performances in this thing. Beyond that, hints of what the monster looks like are gradually revealed as the film progresses.
We know it has claws, and it apparently drains blood from its victims. A brief glimpse of its twin as it hatches, and right before it gets killed, reveals a pair of creepy, glaring eyes. Then we see the footprints it leaves behind, each with 3 toes and indicating a bipedal stance.
Now, I said earlier that we don't see the monster for 99% of the film. That means there's a very brief 1% in which we do see it. And it looks okay.
Obviously, there are limits to the special effects, so it's not on par with something like Godzilla, hence why it's used sparingly. Design-wise, it doesn't appear to be based on any specific kind of dinosaur that I recognize, though a dinosaur is clearly what it's meant to be. The thing is its own species, like the Rhedosaurus or Gorgo, and as its own thing, it looks interesting enough.
You know, as offbeat and obscure as Sound of Horror is, it certainly left an impact.
As mentioned, it was the debut of Ingrid Pitt, who would then go on to appear in movies with actual money backing them. The concept of an invisible dinosaur would also work its way into the final episode of the short-lived Sam Raimi superhero series Mantis, as well as inspire the Night Feeder in Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal.
For a movie of its caliber, it certainly left an unusual legacy. Which is more than I can say for us if we don't deal with the one outside. Snazzy, do you have a plan yet?
Not only do I have a plan, but it's going off in 3, 2, 1.
What the heck was that?
I blew it up with the nitroglycerin we got for Arbor Day.
We still have nitroglycerin?
Well, not as much now. Anyway, you should go check to see if it worked.
Yeah, may as well. Geronimo. Well, I don't hear anything. The sweet sound of silence. Oh, hey, look at that. It's a Sound of Horror collectible figure, and it's really accurate to what the monster looks like, too. Well, guess I better find a place to put this guy in the studio.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.